But start off with how did the two of you get involved with the project? Because I understand Alyssa Milano's listed as the creator, so kind of a strange dynamic for me.
Totally, absolutely.
It was an interesting project because ultimately Alyssa is the creator. She's not just listed as the creator. I mean, she came to this project first. She had Jack Dorsey, who's the founder of Twitter and Square. He was her child's godfather. Jeez, I'm sorry, my brain's dying. He was her son's godfather. Thank you. And ultimately, he had been a real inspiration to her in terms of his work in social media and utilizing this for like active change. And Alyssa is a UNICEF ambassador, and she's very interested in activism, and she's very involved in global activism. So what she was really looking to do was tell a story that helped get people off their butts and kind of figure out that they had power for change in their back pocket, that they had it in their laptop, that they had it in their phone. And when she came to Archaia at the times before the Boom merger to say like, hey, we really want to do, I really want to do this book about this story. I really want to see what it would be like if Jack Dorsey was anonymous. What if Jack Dorsey was a worldwide hacker whose power and influence could be used behind the scenes, kind of like Batman style, to help incite revolution overseas, to help support people who are being kept down by their government, all of that. And so what we ended up doing was sitting down with Alyssa. Archaia came to us, said, okay, we need writers who are going to really interface with Alyssa, be able to write this book, in a way that feels like true to the writer, but will also really be able to work with Alyssa and make sure that her story is told.
And that was a big thing as well, just because, Jack and I do come from Hollywood. We write movies, we write TV, that's kind of the space we're playing in. And we've met some pretty big names, we've met celebrities here and there, and we've done projects with them. And we kind of know how to not just kind of get slack-jawed and starstruck, because, these are beautiful people. They make projects, they do things that we love.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be able to divorce yourself from being a fan to being a professional.
Totally relate to that one.
So, when we met Alyssa, we were very professional about it. We really had an amazing 2-hour-long lunch with her where she laid out all of this. And we realized that this wasn't just going to be a vanity project. This was something that she was truly passionate about. And her instincts here were the same as ours. She wanted to tell a global, grounded, cybernetic, cyber thriller that really takes a look at the intersection between our contemporary climate of surveillance and what we can do technologically with what's going on around the world, with people who don't have those same capabilities. Once we realized we all interfaced along those levels, and we were like, oh my god, this is a project we could fall in love with. And, she could see our excitement. We could see hers, we hugged, we knew this was a project that was going to be amazing, and then we got to the parking lot, and we lost our minds.
Oh my god!
Alyssa
Milano! And we just did a little dance, and it was really fun. But
you didn't get that on video?
No. And then we got home, and sitting there at each of our doorsteps was a big leather folio filled with 100 or so pages of hand-copied, hand-highlighted material that Alyssa had been collecting for a while that was all research on this thing. Alyssa is not a in-name-only creator. Alyssa came in here, she built the book with us, really helped us design it, and then was cool enough to kind of give us the freedom as writers to just run with it. And really didn't see it again until the script, and was able to sit down with the script and be like, oh crap, this is what I want, and here's how we're going to change it, and here's the things I'm interested in. And she was a collaborative partner and a creator for truth, not just this is a celebrity project or a vanity project.
And then the fun element, there's, obviously, then there's little picadillos, right? Everyone has something that they're they got in their head. We got a note from her, actually a style guide. And she was like, well, these guys dress well, right? Our main characters, they're billionaires. She's like, this is what billionaires wear. And it was like, oh goodness, these are some fly suits.
Yeah, we have a style guide for the sequel volume that we're doing right now, which involves a lot less billionaires and a lot more normal people. And those normal people had the exact same attention paid to how they dress and how they feel and what their vibe is in that same way that I think we were looking at the first volume. She's very involved and very interested in the look of the story and the feel of the story and then obviously the story itself.
How much are you guys looking at world events when you're coming up with, where is the story going to take place? Kind of like on Wednesday, United Airlines had all their flights grounded, and later that day, New York Stock Exchange stopped trading for technical reasons.
Yep. And the funny thing is, then so we're on the train down to San Diego, and we're seeing this go down, and then what do we see on Twitter? But a little tweet from Anonymous.
Hope nothing goes wrong tomorrow on Wall Street.
Winky face, right? And it's like that's the kind of stuff we're constantly ingesting. We knowing that we were going to be doing this book, we started that process, and it's been about a 3-year process now. We are pretty regularly keeping our eye on this stuff. The big hack that hit Sony. The wiper attack that took down a big section of downtown Seoul. These are the kind of stuff that most people are kind of they hear it, but they don't really understand. They're not putting the pieces together. Our job as creators is to be tracking this stuff so that we know where it's going to be going, so that our story isn't just made up fantasy gibberish. We're actually doing our best to predict where this stuff is going.
Yeah, so here's the thing about research on Hacktivist, right? There's a bar that we will never be able to cross because we aren't computer scientists. So there's never going to be a point where we're going to be able to say, okay, reasonably I can teach you to code in this book. I can't. I can't code. But here's what I can do. I can understand the context within which all of this is happening. We can look at it and we can say, on Hacktivist Volume 1, a really good example of this, right? We were following what was going on in the Arab Spring. We were following specifically the events in Tunisia. We were following specifically the domestic events that were going down in terms of there was a lot of sort of hubbub about domestic surveillance, and this was all pre-Edward Snowden. And what we said was well, there's no doubt that all of the social media networks and major tech companies are involved in this. So we're just going to write about that. We're going to really get deep down into Ed Snowden before Ed Snowden ever happened. We have a main character who's a hacker named Ed who leaks a bunch of government secrets, and we wrote it 6 months before Edward Snowden happened, right? That's the experience of writing Hacktivist. Every time you write something, you can basically expect it to happen in the next 6 months, which is dangerous a little bit in Volume 2, considering Volume 2 is really violent, but I think that's kind of that's the honesty of the book, is that if we do skirt away from those issues, if we do say we probably shouldn't go there because it's a little Tom Clancy-ish, where you're I'm not sure I want to write something and give somebody that idea. At the same time, the burden of writing this book is you're in the real world, you're limited by the real world, but the real world, when it comes to hacking right now, doesn't seem at all like the real world. It is a weird place, and it is a place where a lot more is possible than you think or than I think, and so the deeper we can get in as theorists, and not coders, not computer scientists, but social theorists, basically, the closer we can get on that, generally the better off we're doing.
So based on the fact that you don't have the skills to do coding and everything, I'm assuming you're working with some experts that can kind of clue you in on what's possible, what's not possible?
That's correct. First volume we had one tech consultant. On the second volume we've had a lot.
Mm-hmm. And considering usually activists,
they are hacktivists.
They call themselves hacktivists. We had a lot of people get actually really pissed at us when we called the book Hacktivist because they thought we were co-opting their name.
Oops.
That's okay.
Usually they try and stay a little bit under the radar. Are they difficult sometimes to get them to open up about what's possible?
Oh yes, very much.
Yes. Our main tech consultant, in the Hacktivist Volume 1 hardcover, we have a fantastic interview with him. But for the longest time, we only knew him as Pablos.
Yeah.
And he would not tell us his last name. Pablos Holman also I don't think is his real name. We don't really know who he is. But he's kind of reached out, and he was able to help guide us through a lot of that process.
He's one of the architects of Tor. He's a really old school architect for this kind of stuff.
And smart enough to keep his name off the radar.
Yeah, smart guy. And then ultimately, that was the great thing about Hack 2 was because we were starting to play with a lot more edge fringe elements in this community, it meant we actually had to interface a little bit with the edge fringe elements of this community. And that's not a lot, right? They're not going to get involved with us because it's a commercial enterprise and a lot of these guys are very specifically anti-commercial, right? But you are occasionally going to find those people that can become allies and can help translate it for you. There's a guy named, that we know as Vincent the Bay, that's his Twitter handle, but he reached out to us after reading Volume 1 and was like, he literally reached out, was really upfront about I'm a cyber criminal, and then was like, or I was.
I've been a cyber
criminal. I'm not trying to call Vincent a criminal. But he was saying, I've been in this world. I know what's going on, and I have a lot of thoughts about what you did here, for good or ill. can I talk to you? And so when we hit Volume 2, one of the first things we did was get on a big call with him and get a bunch of advice and also run past a bunch of our ideas for Volume 2 so that if it really sounded like this was something that just, was like impossible or would be disrespectful to the community that we're talking about, because we are talking a lot more about the anonymous community, not directly anonymous, obviously we can't speak for them and we don't want to, but we're talking about the core of the movement, right? When we were talking about that, we wanted to make sure that Vince was in a lot of ways our initial sounding board for, are we doing this right? And then once he really backed us and was like, yeah, no, I think A, you are, and I think B, the further you take this into quote unquote science fiction, the stronger this is going to be. It really let us kind of run with some crazier ideas that are maybe a little less grounded, but ultimately a lot more adventurous than Volume 1. The trick being that what we think is impossible and adventurous in 6 months will be fact. So we're watching stuff come true for Volume 2 already.
And Hawkhouse seeing that with their think tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt Hawkins does a lot of research on it, and then he was doing a lot about drones in the early issues, and then pretty much drones were everywhere after that.
It's the danger. We call it science fiction of 5 minutes from now. It's trying to predict the immediate future of where we're currently going, and it's dangerous because you can shoot too low. And then your book comes out and it's like, well, this happened months ago. Like, come on, guys, you're just writing. And, a lot of fans don't realize, no, a comic book takes, a year to produce.
Yeah, Hacktivist took a year to produce, and over the course of that year, we literally wrote a script, and then Edward Snowden happened, and we were like, wait, so our book is coming true in real life right now. Like, get this book out there. Like, what is happening?
Obviously, because it is doing social media and everything, when I first read it, the first word that goes through my head, of course, is Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's similarities, obviously there's a lot of differences too, but as just a reader, especially if it was one that wasn't very technical, mine luckily I'm a little bit more.
Sure.
But was the intent to have it be that closely representative of a real network that your common readers might?
We definitely needed it to be similar enough that, especially what you're talking about is the fictional social media group that our main characters found called Your Life.
Right.
And yes, Your Life needed to be approachable and engaging enough that an audience was able to kind of see the real parallels. But at the same time, what we were thrilled to do was take a look at Facebook, take a look at Twitter, and say, what are these missing? And by building Your Life into something that was unique, we really tried to kind of fill that fictional space. Within the narrative space of our book, your Facebook and Twitter still exist. It's just that Your Life does it better.
And it does it in a way that is a lot more built around activism and about getting, that's the point of Your Life, right? What do you want to do with your life? Your life is designed essentially to connect you with people, to help you achieve your goals, and to help you achieve their goals. It's designed to allow everybody to have a better life through that social connectivity, which to us is the strongest part of social networks. Social networks allow us to create a system by which change is not limited to the people that you can talk to, and it's not limited to countries, and it's not limited to groups or even ideologies. That social media knocks down a lot of those doors and allows us to interface with people we never would have interfaced with before, and it doesn't need to be to complain about movies, right? That is what we use it for a lot, and post pictures of our food. We don't. That's not what it needs to be. And part of what Hacktivist 1 is about is looking at it and being like, there's a better use for this incredible tool that we have than the way that we here in the West are using it. And actually, it was being demonstrated every single day. That's why we wrote about Tunisia. Every single day in Tunisia, they were trying to shut off the internet. They were trying to shut down Twitter. They were trying to block Facebook. They were trying to make sure that people couldn't get into these networks, because if they could get into these networks, they could mobilize against a dictatorial government. The Rebel Alliance is Facebook, right? And that's nuts. So the idea that we got a chance to be all right, let's do our own, was, yes, it is pointing at Facebook, and it is pointing very much at Twitter. I think probably there's maybe a closer parallel in a lot of ways to Twitter than there is to Facebook in terms of the immediacy of Your Life.
But the thing that we really kind of circled around to is the thing about Your Life is there's a certain amount of instinct to it. It brings you the people who will best help you achieve your ends. In Volume 2, what we do is we turn that on its head, and we say, what if you took that algorithm and you weaponized it? What if your intentions weren't necessarily towards freeing someone, doing towards, what air quotes, the greater good, but rather towards something that's a lot more dangerous and a lot more violent?
If you can inspire peaceful revolution with this tool, it seems like it would be incredibly simple, actually, to inspire violent revolution with this tool. And that's that's the question we start to run after in Volume 2.
And with the way Volume 1 went, hello, governments get involved, and what can happen with that kind of a tool at that point?
If our boys just changed the government of a Middle Eastern country, what could they do at home?
Right. Though ultimately, I think that's part of the fun of Hacktivist 1 is that they don't change that government. Ultimately, not to spoil the end of the book, but the point is not our boys taking down a government at home, or frankly taking down a government in the Middle East. That's not what happens in Hacktivist.
Jackson, correct? Yes. Thank you for the correction.
It's an important point because it's literally the point of the book. If the book were about two white guys rolling into Tunisia and taking down their government using social media, I would be disgusted with our book. That's not what it's about. The book is about two white guys who try to do that and realize the insane ramifications that happen when you think of yourself as greater than a sovereign nation, and think you as an individual have more power than the people on the ground. And then, frankly, Hacktivist 2 is all about that. It's just domestic. Just take that and look at the United States population rather than the Tunisian population, and I think you're starting to get a sense of what Hacktivist 2 is about.
And you can start to tap into all the rage and all the anger and all the misplaced frustration that is going on in every single one of us here in this country.
And it's pretty insane right now.
It's incredibly insane.
And it's our, frankly, kind of our responsibility, or at least our self-made responsibility to talk about that, because if we don't, then why are we telling the story if we're not?
Exactly. As artists, there's really nothing. Obviously, we want to thrill people. We want to tell stories that make them care, but at the same time, we see it as our personal responsibility to try and open people's eyes. And if there's something we can't, we're not going to put on costumes. We're not going to run around the streets and try and fight crime. I'm not going to become a cop. I'm sorry, any of my family members who want me to become a cop. I'm not going to do it. What we are going to do is we're going to make art. And that art is going to hopefully open some people's eyes, really change how they think about things. And if we can help influence the greater good, if we can try and change things even just a little bit by doing what we love, then that's a win.
So, talking about Volume 2, which haven't seen yet because it wasn't at the booth when I stopped by.
It's on a truck.
It's on the truck.
It's almost here.
We won't mention that, Mel teased us with that one.
Well,
Except you just did. You just mentioned it.
He is a tease.
So, with the big gap between Volume 1 and 2, when Volume 1 came out, was there a plan to do a Volume 2, or did this come around only because there was such a good reaction to Volume 1?
The latter. We did not think we'd get a sequel. We had ideas for what we might do with a sequel, but I think everybody, including, frankly, us and Alyssa and Boom, and I'm sure everyone involved with the book, was skeptical that it would find an audience in a comic book market that isn't really designed to tell these kind of stories all the time.
Hacktivist isn't superheroes.
Well, I mean, it's not just there's a superhero. There's almost no action. Really, there is, but
there's a lot of amazing action, and it'll totally blow your mind.
I mean, Hacktivist 2 especially has a lot more action, but the point of the story is pretty intellectual, and not to say that doesn't exist in comics, but that's a hard thing to launch to a mass market, and to our, I suppose, surprise, but also to really validate that the story was one that people would respond to, people did. Hacktivist 1 did very well. And I think that hopefully didn't surprise anybody, but definitely validated what it was we were doing. So they were very, Boom came to us, and Alyssa came to us, and everybody came to us and was like, we think a sequel's on the horizon. It's going to take us a while to break it, but you guys get 6 issues now, so start figuring out what this really means. And we sat down with Alyssa and really started to figure out what that meant.
And like you said, it takes about a year to get it to
exactly
be produced.
Yep.
So we've been producing it for a while now, and the thing that we really kind of sat down with was obviously we kicked in a lot of doors with one. We really we edged on some really deep thoughts. We kind of wrestled with some heady concepts, but as soon as we realized we wanted to look domestically, we instantly butted up against this fact that as soon as you start to tell a highly topical tale about the dangers of living in the United States of America in 2015, you're going to start tweaking some noses. You're going to make some people pretty mad. Because for every person who might back your play, there's going to be someone who equally and aggressively...
I don't like how I'm being represented.
And we realized that because of that, if we're going to tell this story, we needed to be ready for any kind of backlash. And to Alyssa Milano's credit, amazingly, she 100% had our back. She told us Let's cause a ruckus.
Yeah, we might as well have "Let's cause a ruckus" tattooed on our forehead every time we hit a point where we were like, are we really gonna do this? Like, are we gonna make this move? Because there's gonna be people who see this move again. People who read issue 1 of Hacktivist and say we're writing a White Savior story. Like, people are gonna read issue 1 of Hacktivist 2, and they're gonna be like, "You're telling of this story?" And the answer has to be the same as Hacktivist 1, which is read the whole book. Like, we're getting to something. But you gotta come on the journey with us. If you don't come on the journey with us, you're not gonna get the point. This is not a book to be consumed in 1 issue. This is a book to be consumed in 6. And we're really hoping that the audience comes along that journey with us and sees where we're going with us. And I think issue 1 should convince a lot of people. Marcus Toe stepped up his game in a huge way in the year between these books. He started inking in a different way, where now his inks are just exponentially better than they were, and they were already great. Ian Herring is back after having now spent a lot of time on Miss Marvel and really working with just some really incredible artists.
And
Marvel.
And Ian Herring, who won the Eisner for Best Color for Tale of Sand nomination. Yeah. So he's already at the top of his game. He comes onto Hacktivist and does a book that literally almost makes me cry from how beautiful his colors are.
And it needs colors because we're taking place in 2 different locations and we're cutting back and forth. Like, Ian's the reason you're in Tunisia or you're in San Francisco.
That's part of what I liked about Volume 1 was you knew where you were just by the colors on the page.
Hacktivist 2 not only has 4 or 5 main locations, but we are in different perspectives and flashbacks, and I just thought Ian was just going to do another amazing job. Ian exponentially increased his awesomeness. I had to reread our first issue almost 5 times because I was like, I can't believe this is what we wrote. He elevated the entire work so much.
Yeah, he's great.
High fives for Ian Herring.
Yeah, way to go, Ian. And he did the variant cover here at San Diego, which is also awesome. That's actually the variant cover is an Ian Herring original, which looks gorgeous. And it's the first variant we've had. We had design variants on Hacktivist, but we didn't actually have original covers. In Hacktivist 2, because Hacktivist 1 initially was supposed to be published as just an OGN. And then when the Boom thing happened and they read it and they were like, oh, we want to put this out in issues, it was great, but we didn't have any covers. So we were literally taking elements from the book and putting them on the design covers.
And to Scott Newman's credit,
Scott killed
it.
Killed it. But that was the thing, on Hacktivist 2, they were like, I think we can actually draw covers this time. So that was a really exciting opportunity. You just got me in the middle of a word, I'm pretty sure.
I just did my little...
Yeah, you were just very passionate about what you were saying.
Ian's great.
And of course, and Darren Bennett is back doing letters, and Darren's a titan in the industry. He's upped his game, and he's the nicest guy in the universe. So
great letterer.
Yeah.
And who legitimately created a new way of doing foreign languages in Hacktivist 1,
which is now being cribbed by everyone of by the Big Two. You're welcome, Big Two.
I don't think I've seen it in a Big Two book.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah, awesome. It's a really great system. It's color coded with a little it has the language above the bubble. So we had a scene where that Bleeding Cool pushed out, and I was really happy about that. That was the panel they decided to be like, oh, I really like this book. It's just a panel of 3 people talking, but one of them's talking in English, and one of them's talking in Tunisian, and one of them's talking in, Tunisian Arabic, and one of them's talking in French Tunisian. And they don't all speak the same languages, so they have to talk around each other in different colors. And, we wrote the scene, and we're like, we have no idea how you're going to achieve this in a comic, so enjoy. And Darren literally broke the game and rebuilt it and came back with it. He's awesome.
We do that to our amazing collaborators quite a lot. We'll write something and then we put a little frowny face and say, "Sorry, you figure it out." And
every issue with Marcus,
to their credit, they consistently step up to the plate and hit home runs.
We've been getting emails from Marcus on every issue that's like, "This is the hardest thing I've ever drawn. Thank you." And we'll be like, "Awesome." And he'll be like, "This is seriously what are you doing to me?" And there's a 32-page double spread in issue 5. I won't tell you why, but there is a 32-panel double spread, and we sent him an email being like, maybe, and he sent us back this GIF of somebody just weeping, and just shaking. Oh, it was Carrie from Homeland, just crying and weeping and so sad. And I think he's still going to draw it, and that's why Marcus is amazing.
Well, I think that's why the book works, is you guys do have a really great team, because when
you're
I'm looking for
right.
a comic, I'm looking for the story, I'm looking for the art, and I'm looking for the two of them to come together correctly, and Hacktivist had all of that.
Thank you.
Plus, being a little bit of a techno geek, definitely was one of those who go,
I think it helps.
Damn.
I think it helps if you care about the tech.
I mean, luckily, almost if you're alive in 2015, you are a techno geek.
No, I know a few people that
Oh,
know nothing about.
You know the last Luddites?
They're all in a city.
I have to help some of them, and it's really bad when you have to explain. No, you need to left click that button on the left on the mouse,
Fair
and you have to
enough.
explain how to left click. That's there
that's
are
heavy
people.
duty, yeah.
Yikes.
Last question, only because
Please.
part of this will be for Metal Life. What music do you guys listen to?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Especially with any metal.
Well, I mean, I actually grew up with a lot of metal in my household. My stepfather listens to a lot of metal, and
His stepfather is literally a rocket scientist. He's one of the smartest men you will ever possibly meet. And in all the photos, he has lank black hair that hangs down in front of his face like some kind of grim reaper.
dude took me to a Napalm Death show when I was 16, and this giant dude tried to cartwheel out of the pit, and Don. He's like 6'5" or something. He grabs the guy's leg in midair and shoves him back into the pit in the middle of this Napalm Death show. It's one of the most badass moments I've ever seen in my life. Napalm Death. I spent a lot of time in Ireland as a kid, so I love therapy.
Okay.
I played in a band that sounded a lot like Tool in high school.
Would No Age count as?
I don't think No Age counts as metal, but I love No Age, and we write to No Age all the time. We listen to a lot of punk music. And a lot of electronica when we're writing. Not like oons electronica, but like kind of Radiohead inspired, like a lot of Tommy Lee stuff.
We listen to anything if it sounds like two computers making love, but like very aggressive love, not like sensuous, like working together, but like it sounds like they're fighting or they're making out. We don't know, but it's definitely computers. It definitely sounds like pots and pans being tossed downstairs.
Our girlfriends are really tired of listening to Dawn of MIDI. Dawn of MIDI has been our jam for a while, and thank God they took them off. They took themselves off Spotify, or I think our girlfriends were going to leave us.
Yeah.
For all the times they had to listen to music that was literally just like dun 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 dun. It's like, what the fuck are you listening to, guys? But we love it.
That's our jam.
Okay, if that works for your writing, it works.
Bingo.
All right. Well, I know that you've got a lot of people wanting to talk to you. Thank you for taking time.
Of
and
course.
I'm
Absolute
looking
pleasure.
forward to Hacktivist Volume 2.
So are we.
We're excited to share it.
Coming July 29th.
Unless you happen to be at Comic-Con and it shows up at the Boom
Whoop
Boom.
whoop whoop. Then come on by.